it pretty far, all things considered. Thanks for your applause. Still every time I close the door and another won't open, I get this panic that my life is now on pause. The dark gets cleared, the board's been cleaned, there's nothing left on my screen. The plate is empty, so it seems. Now is the time to ask, okay, what's next? This was fun while it lasted, nothing comes to it, ask it. So I'd really like to know what's next. Around the corner, down the street, whatever's meant for me to meet. I'm waiting for it to sleep, so tell me please, what's next? Haunting me and I'd like it to go. See, I could be 103 and still moving slow, full of promise and potential till my eyes finally close. But I got time, got years and years, work to do, but I got fears and there's a ringing in my ears. So still I gotta ask, okay, what's next? This was fun while it lasted, nothing comes to you, ask it. So I'd really like to know what's next. Around the corner, down the street, whatever's meant for me to meet. I'm waiting for it to sleep, so tell me please, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? What's not? The stitch is out of focus. What's next? What's not? Just tell me it's not hope. What's next? What's not? Just tell me it's not hope. What's next?
All right. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be in this beautiful planet of ours. This is Metaphysical Mocha Mondays. I'm your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, here Monday mornings, most Monday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this morning, I'm supporting my fellow Kraken that opened up its hockey here in Seattle, something we haven't had since the early 1900s. So hockey is back in Seattle. I'm wearing my inaugural season jersey, as you can see, and I'm the captain of my team, number 22, which is a master number as a numerologist, and going to the game tomorrow. So season ticket holder, so I'm looking forward to that. A lot of you may not know that one of the first teams to ever win the American Stanley Cup was here in Seattle in the early 1900s. They were the Seattle Metropolitans, and they were actually one of the first American teams to ever win the Stanley Cup after Lord Stanley from Canada and England. So welcome to today's show. Let's all take a deep breath. Let's move into the magic of the moment. Grab your coffee, grab your tea. Let's have a spiritual chat this morning, and then we will move into, at 8:30, we move into the I'm going to call it the Healing Cafe today, because I just feel like we need a lot of healing in our world right now. There's just, every day I wake up and it just seems like there's something else that's just nefarious or violent or disruptive to what's going on in our society. And so this morning's show, when I was meditating of what I want to talk to, I don't have a script or a plan for any of my shows. Let me do the lighting here. It's a little bit dark here in Seattle. Let me see if that helps a little bit better. And this morning I thought I'd talk about healing. I thought I'd talk about hearing and I thought I'd talk about hate. So how could I put that together? Kind of inspirational. Hearing, here we go. Hearing minus hate equals healing. And what I mean by that is, as I observe society, as I observe this pandemic, as I observe our politics here in America, as I observe other people and their opinion, it just seems like at this moment in history, we have a lot of hate. We used to have our disagreements about sports. That's why I'm wearing my jersey this morning, because we used to be, passionate about who we supported in our sports, have debates, and, but at the end of the day, it was a celebration to celebrate your sporting event, to support your team. And that has changed over the last, I'd say over the last decade. It's changed to where now it's like, if you support something and somebody is against it, then they come with a place of opinion and hate. And we're not hearing one another. We're not listening to one another. Social media, for you guys that follow my work, for the last couple of years, I've talked about using platforms of positivity with all of my social media platforms, whether it's here on Facebook, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on my Instagram channel, whether it's on my TikTok channel. And I hope that you follow me, because I do different things on all those different platforms. It's not always the same thing on, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And I guess I've come to find out Facebook is going to be changing their name officially. So we will stop using this as Facebook and whatever new name they're going to come up with in the next few weeks, which is interesting. But I said during our Roaring 20s, in my predictions last year and even the year before, I've been talking about this for 2 years, that our Roaring 20s were going to be very awakening and very transformative. And the words that I kept coming back to were sustainability, homeostasis, self-mastery. And we keep hearing the words about, oh, you need to be awoke. But if we're really awoke, if we're really a species, if we're really a society and a consciousness that's really dedicated to awakening and transforming, then we should not have hate in this wheelhouse. We should not have violence. We should not have, we should have a difference of opinion and perspective, of course, but that hate, that downright to, where the hate is really getting to violence. And I don't support violence of any kind. My family was impacted by murder and violence. We're victims of violent crimes. It's one of the organizations that I still support to this day. And I have no place for violence in my work or my associations. And violence and hate are a very low form of intelligence. It's actually a very low vibration energy. If you think in terms of energy and frequency and vibration, hate and violence are one and the same. That fear drives that hate. So today's message, I just came up with it right now, is hearing minus hate equals healing, because we need to start listening to one another, and we need to start coming together before we pull back from this brink that we're on. Now, for those of you that have followed my work, and some of you are in alignment with and agree with it, and other people don't agree with it, that's fine. That's democracy. But I've talked that if we don't start pulling back and change how we do social media, how our news cycles don't change the information they're preventing or presenting, we need to prevent misinformation, disinformation, especially when it comes to public health. There's been I've worked in healthcare for 25 years, you guys, and this mask, anti-mask, vax, anti-vax, just ask yourself this question and decide where you want to be. I have no problem saying that I am fully vaccinated. I have to be, because I work federally and I work in healthcare. I don't have a choice, because I'm taking care and being around other people. But ask yourself this question: how many people today do you know that have polio? How many people today do you know have smallpox? And the only way that this COVID is going to get eradicated, like polio, like smallpox, is through the power of vaccination. Now, I know everybody has free will and choice in a democracy, but to participate in a democracy, you also have to follow some of the rules that are set for public health. That's, whether we're wearing a seatbelt in a car, wearing a seatbelt in an airplane, wearing a bicycle helmet when you ride a bicycle for safety. And somewhere along the lines it got politicized, which is completely unfortunate, because a lot of people have passed into the spirit world. I'm sure we're getting close to 800,000 here in the United States and almost 5 million around the globe. But part of this problem is we're not hearing one another, and we're not coming from a place of understanding, because there are some people that can't get vaccinated. I do understand that. And some people just don't want to get vaccinated. I understand that as well. But we need to understand perspectives, and we need to have empathy and compassion and understanding for people's differences. And we've seen to move past that threshold. A threshold is just like a door, right? That's why we call it a threshold. When you walk into something, you cross a threshold. Back in the day, before there were houses, you used to have your huts made of, bricks and rocks and straw, and they would actually put a straw threshold before you actually came into the dirt to help keep some of that moisture and dirt out. So we are crossing a threshold. I said in the Roaring 20s, if we're truly passionate and really progressive and moving forward and really awoke, we'll stop this canceling people. We'll stop, holding a lot of hate for people. There's the old saying that, politics is war without violence. And what I see coming is politics and war switching, where war becomes politics with violence. We're already seeing violent things taking place. And in my predictions, you guys know that I've talked for almost 3 years now about some sort of civil war, some sort of national divorce of the United States, where the states just can't hold it together. It has happened before. It probably will happen again. Everything comes to a change in society and within our history. We're already starting to see some of the states go their own way, which is hard in democracy, right? But this isn't a show about politics. This is a show about history. This is a show about what I've talked about for 2 years, that I also, in my prediction, have talked about the great coming together, that I see us coming together, and there's going to be some sort of catalyst or some sort of trigger or some sort of event, whether it's from nature, whether it's little green men, realizing officially that we're not alone. I've long said that we're not alone. And I'll give you a quote to help back up that why I think we're not alone. But at the same time, I see this great coming together, but I also know before this great coming together happens that there's going to be chaos and violence and historical moments that before it brings us together. But I'd like to go back to the days where we just could have debates and rants about just what sports teams that we like. We still do that, but in this day and age with social media, it's created a lot of people's opinions to where the opinions turn to hate, turn to violence, turn to death threats. Even last year, I had my first death threat. And I'm thinking, I'm not a violent person at all. And people can agree to disagree. That's what a civil society does. That's what a society with higher intelligence would do. But we know that not everybody's on the same page. And, again, when we get into that hate energy for one another, when we don't listen to one another, when we have, when we take our perspectives and, it's I'm right, you're wrong. And if you don't agree with me, I'm going to hurt you, or I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to go to a violent standpoint. That's not where we need to be. We need to come back from this brink that we seem to be on and move away from the violence and the hatred. So today's message over coffee is hearing minus hate equals healing. And like I said, I just came up with that this morning. I just kind of like how things flow, and we can do that over a cup of coffee. And I hope that you join me here on Metaphysical Mocha Mondays, on Monday mornings, to have perspective, to have inspiration, to have encouragement, to have motivations. That's why I do what I do, because I wasn't always this way. And for those of you that have followed my work for a while, you know that I come from a very disruptive, violent history of losing a brother to murder, losing a brother to brain cancer, losing a father-in-law to MS, a lot of loss, a lot of trauma and tragedies are the TNT that blows people's lives up, that transforms them to help them look at different perspective. Because the one thing I've learned in all of this journey is that pain, very painful as it is, which has happened years ago, also triggers consciousness. It triggers higher perspective. It changes your belief systems. I no longer fear death. I respect death very much so, but I know that death is just another journey based on metaphysics, based on energy, based on physics, based on my own personal belief. Now, not everybody's going to believe what I believe, and that's okay. But it's where we can come into a community every Monday here on Facebook until they change the name. And it's a community of like minds, but also people that may, disagree, but participate in the conversation over a cup of coffee and a cup of tea and philosophize. That's where we need to get back to, is use social media platforms, which I call platforms of positivity, to use it for benefits of others, not to divide, not to disrupt, not to cause chaos. And I long see that social media, not just Facebook, but a lot of the other platforms are going to get regulated at some point. And at some point, people are going to start standing up to misinformation, disinformation, lies. Where let's say you post that the world is flat. Now, I know that, some people believe that, they believe that within their hearts, that the world is flat. And that would go, against everything factually that we know from science. That would go against everything that we would look out at a reflection of our universe. When we look out, we're a reflection back. And every planet that I've seen in the galaxy with my own telescope, with my own eyes, is round, not flat. So if the world's flat, then we have to have a different story, because that means that the Earth is some sort of hologram or some sort of study, because we would look different from all of the rest of the universe. So, but what I'm saying is, if people want to have that belief system out there based on science, based on facts, based on physics, and say that the world is flat, they are entitled to their opinion. But it's equivalent to like that misinformation is like walking into a movie and saying, I have a gun, or walking onto a plane and saying, I have a bomb. Even though you don't, it causes fear and panic. And I think, and I feel that social media will start to change how information is presented. So if somebody posts and says the world is flat, that information is either going to get pulled down by social media. They're already having teams. There's already, things in place, things in motion, because they're getting called out. The whistleblower, one, called them out, but two, they've known it for a while. And we used to have a Fairness Doctrine Act back in 1949, when television started to come into all the homes of Americans. They actually had the Fairness Doctrine Act. And of course, politics got rid of that. And that's where cable news in the 80s was born. That's where CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all the cable news started to promote their own agendas without any ramifications from the FCC. So go back and study your history and see why we are, remember, television, if you break the word down, television, programming, those are real concepts of what you take in and what you start to believe, so much that it's created a society where people believe with no facts, without any rule of law, without any judicial backings, that there's lies and there's misinformation and disinformation. And that has created two societies. And when you have those two different realities, it really comes back to what Ulysses S. Grant. These are books from the Civil War, things that I've been studying for the last few years. Abraham Lincoln's biographies there, Ulysses S. Grant memoirs are there. And I've talked about this a few times on the show, but Ulysses S. Grant talked about the next big conflict in America would not be based on a Mason-Dixon line. The Mason-Dixon line is where the Civil War was, where the Union that didn't believe in slavery, which is a big part of the Civil War, and the economy of slavery, even though people want to discount that, where states wanted slavery and wanted to have their own ways without being a part of the Union, being told what to do by the Union, created our Civil War. When Alabama was the first state to secede from the Union and fired the shots on Fort Sumner, that triggered the event. And what he talked about in his memoirs back then in the 1800s, late 1860s, he said that the next conflict would come from ignorance and falsifications and what we call sycophancy. And sycophancy is a belief in, it's like the emperor's new clothes. You believe in something so much that the emperor's standing there naked and you're saying, wow, look at his robes. They're made of gold. They're amazing. And you see with your own eye that he's naked, but yet you still believe a bigger concept. And what social media has done is it's done that sycophancy. It's done that emperor's new clothes to get people divided on, whatever you believe. You're entitled to believe what you believe. I'm not telling you what to believe, but I would say, and I would recommend, if we want to move forward as a society and stay away from violence and hate and low vibration energy, is to start believing in math, to start believing in science, to start believing in physics, to start believing in facts, to support the rule of law. These are things that are just of a moral standard, of a moral compass, and we have lost our moral ways, we've lost our moral compass, and we've lost our moral standards. And I wouldn't be sitting here today to tell you that I'm a perfect human being. I am not. I've made my mistakes, but I still try to get up each and every day to try to become the better version of who I am and try to pay it forward in society, because I want to see people succeed. I want to see people happy. I want to see people healthy. And when I wake up every day, I don't see that in our world. And that's because we have a lot of disinformation, a lot of misinformation, a lot of hate. And I really think if we come to the table, if we have this great coming together, and we all have different seats at the table, but it's still one table, and that table's planet Earth, unless there's another planet out there. I believe that we can start to have respect and civil debates, to start to hear and listen to one another, because obviously there's a lot of people that are upset based on where things have gone, where things are going, people that are homeless, people that don't have any help, people that have been bankrupt from medical, this COVID-19 pandemic, the politics in our society. But if we start to hear and minus the hate and really just show up and just be happy for people. William Shatner just went to space, and people had to try to give their opinions or politicize something it's just historically great to watch one of my heroes, Captain James T. Kirk, go to space for the first time. And, again, people want to go on these rants and create divide. How about we just be happy for what's taking place and not have all these different opinions, and use social media as a platform that divides people and promotes misinformation and disinformation? And let's use the platform to really help get people on a page that does have moral standards, does have a moral compass, that does bring people together, that inspires people and says, no, we want a planet that's healthy for the next generations. Don't, take the politics out of it. Politics is a circus. We know that. Politics divide people. That is going to change within this decade, our roaring 20s. I said, the politics are going to fracture. I don't care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you're independent. There's going to be new parties that are born of this. There's going to be some sort of civil war, some sort of national divorce. We can agree to disagree, but I've been talking about it for 2 years, and that time has caught up to where we're going to see historical events start to take place. My hope and my intention and my prayers and my thoughts are that it's of a not of a violent nature. Sometimes things have to happen, but they don't always happen with hate and violence and ignorance and sycophancy. But that's where we're going. That's where we're headed. And I hope that we pull back and that we find things that we have in common, like sports, like favorite TV shows, philosophies or favorite book clubs, that we start to talk about the things that we have in common, because we do have a lot in common with one another. We are all humans, and start to, work as a whole, as a collective whole, because history has taught us when that fractures, when that takes away, we know that historically is tragic and it's sad for us and those of us that do want peace. There's a quote from Erwin Schrödinger, need more coffee. And it says, the total number of minds, and this is why I come on here every Monday morning to talk about different stuff like this, metaphysically, physics, psychic, the roaring 20s, what I see ahead as a visionary, as a futurist. And Erwin Schrödinger says the total number of minds in the universe is one. In fact, consciousness is a singularity phasing within all beings. So a lot of us through consciousness know that, with everything going on, from the pandemic to the pride, to the politics, to the mental health, to the breakdown of society and institutions, to the lack of sustainability and homeostasis, we know consciously that something is being created and starting to be developed and start to come into our reality, to our awareness. The question is, what do we do to keep it from going low hate, fear, low vibration energy, sycophancy, misinformation, disinformation, and how do we cross that threshold to use hearing minus the hate to move into a healing, to where the next 20 years, the next 30 years is a way that we really come together for technology, for science, for social construct, for social equality, social health, a planet that's sustainable. So again, these are words that I've long used for a few years now: sustainability, homeostasis, self-mastery, the great coming together. But we're at that cliff, and we can decide to go over it, or we can decide to pull back together and say, no, let's find a different way down. It's going to be hard, yes. Is it going to be, agree to disagree? Yes. But again, I hope that even politics finds a common ground and starts to work together, because from what I've seen, I've never seen anything like that. As a constitutionalist, as a veteran, I've never seen the politics that they are the way they are today. And again, they've been created over time, not just one president, not just two presidents. This goes back for many years, guys. So you have to be objective when you look and have a political conversation with somebody. It's not just the current times or the current president or the past president. It is what has come before that have laid the foundations to where we're at today. So, my hope is, that's why I've got, Grogu behind me, that because think about how that would change society. I've long believed that aliens have been a part of our society, have been observing us, because what would we do is, if we found something as humans, and I just use this from my own military background and logic studies, we would observe something. We wouldn't interact, especially if something was violent, if something was very low vibration energy, if something was, conflict. You take red ants and black ants and you put them together in a jar. The red ants and the black ants will actually work in harmony with one another. So I kind of look at that as, you take today's political system, the red states and the blue states, and you put them together in a jar, which we call the United States of America. Everybody can work together and live in harmony with different opinions, free will, and choices, right? And, have the moral compass and, operate under the rule of law with due process and the Constitution. Because remember, guys, the political ideologies that are out there are not in the Constitution. So people use that. It's like using scripture, using one passage of scripture, which, the Bible is one fantastic book full of knowledge, but that's one of many books around the world to many different religions. And one passage in scripture doesn't make it so. So that's where we need to have the perspective. That's where we need to have the listening and the hearing. But if you take the red states and the blue states and you put them in a jar, the United States, that works in harmony. It's only when the jar is shook in nature. If you do this in nature with the red ants and the black ants, and you shake that jar vigorously, violently, the ants actually think it's the other ant causing this, and they actually fight each other and they actually kill each other. And if you think about what's going on, the powers that be, political, people that are very, very rich, which we call the elite, the capital, people that have, really profited off capitalization. That's another thing that I think that capitalism is going to change within the United States. Social medicine is going to change. Technology and space is going to change in our roaring 20s. But if you shake that jar, there's those that actually benefit from that, and the rest of us that are in this jar think it's the other person causing that problem. So again, that's where that objectivity, that perspective, that higher perspective, to realize we're in this jar together, and let's stop shaking it. Let's stop doing that. And wouldn't it be something if we finally realized that outside this jar, there's another ant, there's another species, there's another intelligence. I've seen a UFO with my own eyes in my days in the Coast Guard. I've talked about it for a few years now. The full disclosure, I think that our government, and I think that we've had interactions with a species that's farther advanced than us technology-wise. Doesn't make them a deity or a god. It just means that they've evolved and they've progressed. But I don't know if I'd want to have an interaction with us as humans right now, because we are still very low vibration, low thinking, very violent type of species, to present themselves to us to say, hey, we're here, we can help you to move forward. And that could be a great coming together, because again, overnight, if we realize we're not alone, philosophy, science, mathematics, technology, space travel, religion, people would actually, if we had another species that, finally made themselves known to us officially with outside of government channels, which is, it's slowly dripping out. We've got a government report. People are, very high educated people are talking about these tic tacs that break the laws of physics and gravity within our planet, that don't have any wings. So we know that there's something here. But overnight, if that was announced officially, think about all the problems of today, health, medicine, that would all change. And of course, they would become deities. UFOs would become a ufology would become a religion within itself, because people would worship them as gods, because that's what humans do, that, don't think for themselves. But here's the quote that has really helped me understand that these roaring 20s where we're at, and I can look back at this 10 years and say, you're completely wrong, Mark. That's okay. But for my meditations, for my visions, for my dreams of what I see coming, this great coming together is probably going to incorporate little green men or technology, that we're not alone. So not believing in aliens is like taking a spoonful of water from the ocean. So I got Puget Sound right out here. So I'm going to go out to the Puget Sound with a spoon, and I'm going to dip that spoon in the ocean, and saying there are no whales and sharks in the ocean because there are none in my spoon. But I know from science, I know from my own interactions with nature, that there are whales, that there are sharks. I've swam with sharks. I've seen whales. And I know that they're out there in the Puget Sound. There are octopus. Octopus is an alien within itself because it doesn't have DNA compared to anything else on the planet. So therefore, if it's not DNA of this planet, that means that it's not of this planet. And octopus are logic thinking, problem solvers. They interact. Watch the documentary, My Octopus Teacher. Fabulous documentary on Netflix. So, and of course, octopus look very alien, right? They look very different. And we know that aliens are not going to look like us because our environment dictate how long our arms can be to reach to our mouths to feed ourselves. So if you're in a planet that doesn't have gravity like us, of course, you're going to look different. But not believing in aliens is like literally taking a spoon. We know the ocean is vast, and we know that the universe is mathematically bigger than all the sands of grains of sand on a beach around our planet Earth. There are more stars and planets. So it's just a matter of time that this will be revealed. And wouldn't that be amazing? It could be a little bit frightening because, again, we don't, as Stephen Hawking said, we got a 50-50 shot. They're either here to, use our resources and use us, or they're here to help us. And I believe that they're here to help us because, again, they're higher intelligent. They're observing us and just picking their time to when they're going to actually reveal themselves to us, which I personally believe was done years ago, including with our governments. So, but that tells me if they're observing us, then that means that there's logic and intelligence and reasoning there, not just, violence and hate. So today's message on Metaphysical Mocha Mondays, we'll get ready for the Healing Cafe. I'm going to call it the Healing Cafe today because we could really use a little bit of healing where our world is at, the differences, the divide, the hate. So if we can start to hear one another, I hope you'll join me in the Healing Cafe here on the Intuitive Prospector page. If you want to learn more about what I do, what's coming up, you can go to marclainhart.com. You can internet search the Intuitive Prospector. Before I do get over into the Healing Cafe, I want to let everybody know too that this Sunday, I'll put the link in the comment section down below. I'm going to be doing a meet and greet this October 31st, which is Sunday. I can't believe it's already going to be the end of October. October 31st at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. UK time, and 8 p.m. Central European time. So if you're past England, I'm going to be doing a meet and greet, and we're going to be talking about, it's a free event. I'll put the link in the comment section, both here on Metaphysical Mocha Mondays and also in the Healing Cafe. And here, I'll just put it in here right now. And you can get free tickets to this event, and it's a mediumship meet and greet where myself and my wonderful sister from another mister, Ramitra Stavers, right over in Norway. She's Norway's favorite medium and psychic, and we're going to be talking about for about 90 minutes. We're going to be talking about mediumship. We're going to be talking about metaphysics. We're going to be talking about death and dying. And am I a subject matter expert in that? No, but I do have experiences in death and dying. I do have experience in doing readings for the last decade with thousands of people from around the world, and just talking about the signs, the symbols, the synergy, the synchronistic events. Talk about my personal story, how I even became to do this work. Because again, for those of you that have followed my work, you know that I was not on a pathway to do this. I wasn't born with this gift. I was always sensitive, but it was the trauma and tragedy that triggered awareness, triggered higher consciousness, triggered me to look at things that are not necessarily unseen. Just because we don't see them doesn't mean they're not there. And that includes with the microscope, with the telescope, and within our own planet of what is going on. And I think now I'm here to do this today because of where we're at with our world. But it's a free event. I hope that you'll join us. And then we will be November 29th, at the end of November, we're going to be doing my last mediumship demonstration online. The tickets they're not too expensive, actually, $20. And Ramitra and I will be doing a demonstration, same time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Central European Time, so she can, do that. And we're going to be doing readings. There'll be tears, there'll be laughter, there'll be rejoice, there'll be reunions of spirit. It'll be my last public event because I take the month of December off, including no shows, no radio. And then also one last announcement. This Wednesday, on Inspired Living Radio. We're going to be talking about the fifth dimension. I have a special guest that's coming on. I got really two cool special guests coming on. We're going to be talking about the fifth dimension, something that I've talked about for years, because the fifth dimension is a dimension that's ahead of us. Like when I see civil war or national divorce or states succeeding from the union, I did that prediction 2 years ago. That's our third dimension. And when I connect through meditation, through metaphysics, through dreams, I'm in a fifth dimension, and we have to wait for that timeline to catch up. And we're now catching up to those predictions that I made 2 years ago. So we're going to be talking about that with a special guest and her new book, Accessing the Fifth Dimension, what that even means. For some of you, you may be hearing that for the first time and go, what the hell is this guy talking about? I know it can sound a little weird. It can sound a little woo-woo, a little out there. But again, if you want to start to unlock the secrets of the universe, and Nikola Tesla, the father of frequency, talked about this. The reason you have a cell phone is because of Nikola Tesla. He talked about if you want to unlock the secrets of the universe, you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And just because something is vibrating in one dimension, you speed that vibration up. That means that there's another dimension that it's vibrating in. And look at the laws of metaphysics and physics itself, and you'll understand that energy is pretty powerful. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So we'll be doing that event on November 29th. We'll have a meet and greet on Halloween. So if you want to join us, that event is free. The demonstration of mediumship is $20. I hope that you'll join us. It'll be all via Zoom. So I hope that you can join us. And then I'll be on the air for my last podcast of October. And then I have 2 more in November, and then I'm done. 2 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about Cherokee wisdom, Native American philosophy, and a new book that's coming out. And this week is Fifth Dimensional, talking about that. So I'm looking forward to that. That's called Inspired Living Radio. It's my podcast. We've been on the air for 6 seasons. It's internet radio, so you can listen to the show from anywhere around the world on any device, no passwords, no memberships, no username. We're streaming through all the major platforms now. If you have a favorite podcasting platform, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, etc., you can grab Inspired Living Radio and listen to all the cool shows, all the amazing guests that we've had on, and just the cool topics. We talk about everything from aliens to medicine to dimension to Native American to science to everything and the journey. And that's why it's called Inspired Living Radio. It's not just psychic and mediumship. It's a whole bunch of what I call spiritual awesomeness. So I'm gonna go top off my coffee. Cheers to you. Thanks for hanging out with me today in Metaphysical Mocha Mondays. Again, today's message: hearing minus hate equals healing, because I'm a numerologist and I like to put things in equations and add them up or minus them so we can actually have a solution or an answer. And I do believe if we start to listen to one another, we pull back from the precipice of divide and hate and violence and ignorance and sycophancy, and we start to look at social media different and look at social media as a platform of positivity and not necessarily make it factual, that we start to have this great coming together and we sustain society moving forward. Otherwise, the alternative, as history has taught us, is not a place that we want to be. So thanks for hanging out with me today. I will see you here in just a few minutes on the Healing Cafe today. Going to be doing readings, spiritual chats, live demonstrations. You never know what you're going to get in the Healing Cafe. So make sure to like that subscribe button or turn the notifications on so you can get notifications when I'm live on Mondays. Sometimes I come on Wednesdays. Sometimes I come on and do spiritual takeout, which are meditations or singing bowl or qigong or philosophy. So make sure to get on my YouTube channel, because that's where those go, and this will go over to my YouTube channel as well. So I hope that you're staying safe. I hope that you're staying healthy, positive mindset. I know there's a lot going on, guys, but I see you. I appreciate you. My thoughts and prayers and love are with you. Thank you for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you over in the Healing Cafe here in just a few minutes. And I always like to say, until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate, and most importantly, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and discover that diamond within. I'll see you guys next Monday for Metaphysical Mocha Mondays and another cup of Joe. And go Kraken. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Half 3 when I called you up, said I need you now, cause I'm losing patience. By 4 you were knocking on my door. I said love is a two-way road, you don't care no more, am I going crazy? Needed you to help forget it all. And it was easy, you put the records on to replay. Danced till we couldn't see straight, till the morning came along. Don't need the weekend, we
planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.